cause immunization against pathogens? Well, this is a really fancy way of asking this question. How do vaccines keep us from getting sick? And the answer to that is, well, we really need to know a little bit more about how your body normally protects you from pathogens. So let's imagine a king, and this king is the ruler over a really, really big city. And in order for him to protect the city, it's not enough for him to just have a moat and a strong front door on his castle with a really big lock on it. He also has watchmen who guard from a distance, archers who attack from a far range, foot soldiers who can fight in close range. He might also have specialists who are highly trained to fight against specific enemies. And this is exactly like your body's natural defense system. But the truth is, our body has it a whole lot harder. Because really, germs are all around us. If we were to look at all the cells that were on our bodies, only about 10% of those cells are human cells. So how does our body protect us from germs or microbes? These are things that include bacteria, viruses, and fungi, or pathogens. But what they all have in common is they all cause disease. Pathogens are disease-causing agents. So our body can protect us using 3 lines of defense. The first and the second lines of defense are not specific because they'll respond to all types of pathogens. It's kind of like saying, hey, whatever enemies are here, we are just going to attack them indiscriminately. But the third line of defense is probably the most important one for this discussion because this one is specific. And this third line of defense are kind of like our specialists. They're only going to attack pathogens that match those cells. So let's take a look at the different lines of defense. So here's our first line of defense over here, and this includes things that are physical barriers that prevent pathogens. It's non-specific, everyone has it. It's what we would call innate. And this includes things like skin, tears, our mucous membranes, like the lining of your nose. Mucus is helpful because it can trap different microbes. It also includes enzymes that can destroy the microbe function. We also have cilia, for example, in our respiratory system. These are hair-like projections on the cells that help sweep out the mucus and all those trapped microbes. We also have a really low pH in our stomach because of our stomach acid. And this helps also denature microbial proteins and kills lots of pathogens. But let's say pathogens get past this first line of defense. That's pretty bad, but it's okay because we've got a second line of defense. So what can our body do next? This is still non-specific, but one of the most important parts is that while the second line of defense is busy responding to this super scary pathogen invasion, it also starts rallying the third line of defense. So let's look at who's involved in the second line of defense. We've got a couple different families of proteins. So for example, complement proteins. These are proteins that kill invading or virus-infected cells by creating pores in their membrane and causing them to lyse. Ouch. We also have natural killer cells, also known as NK cells. Now, these are immune cells that destroy body cells that have been infected with a virus by perforating their membranes and injecting enzymes that degrade the cell. Again, ouch. We've also got the inflammatory response, or inflammation. In the inflammatory response, chemicals called histidines are released, and this triggers the dilation of blood vessels to help bring in more immune cells to the area of infection. We know inflammation by its first symptoms: redness, swelling, heat, and pain. But probably one of the most important parts of the second line of defense are the phagocytes. Now, phagocyte means a cell that eats, and this includes immune cells that engulf and digest pathogens or virus-infected cells. And this includes neutrophils and macrophages. So let's take a look at a macrophage. Macro means big, phage means eater. So these guys are really big eaters. So here's our macrophage, and here is our, let's say this over here is our virus-infected cell. So it is one of our cells that has gone bad because it's been hijacked by a virus, and it's now expressing viral proteins on its cell membrane surface. So if this is a phagocyte, it will find this foreign cell and it will engulf it and digest it. So let's say it's gonna break it down using enzymes and release those different parts of the broken down cell via exocytosis. But the thing about phagocytes is that they're also going to now recruit the third line of defense. So here's how they do it. On the surface of a macrophage, we have these very special receptors that help them present an antigen. And we call phagocytes, especially macrophages, or really just macrophages, antigen presenting cells. also known as APCs. Now, what these will do is they're gonna, instead of just sending out all of those different fragments that they just digested via exocytosis, they're actually going to present some of those fragments on the surface of their cells. Now, an antigen is a specific part of a cell. It's a specific molecule, so it might just be, for example, a glycolipid or glycoprotein from the surface. It might be part of the protein coat of a virus, or part of the cell marker on a cell wall, for example. And an antigen is a piece of a particular cell or particular membrane that will trigger an immune response. So what this macrophage is going to do is going to present these fragments, going to present these antigens, these pieces of this very particular virus-infected cell on its surface. And we'll see later why that is really, really important. Essentially what he's saying is, hey guys, here's the enemy. If you know how to deal with this guy, who I'm now presenting, please come and help. So let's take a look now at the third line of defense. So in the third line of defense, it is really specific. It's fairly slow because it takes a little bit of time to get activated, but once it does, it is ruthless. So here's the third line of defense. Our big players in the third line of defense are T cells and B cells. Both of these cells is to recognize specific antigen, that molecule that will trigger an immune response. And it takes 3 general steps. The first step is recognition. T cells and B cells will have antigen receptors on them. And these antigen receptors will match a very particular antigen. For example, our good friend from before who is trying to invade. Now, each B or T cell has specificity. They will only recognize one particular epitope or one particular antigen. And in order for it to recognize it, it has to be presented to the T cell or the B cell. And usually that happens by an APC, such as our good friend, the macrophage, who is now going to present to these T cells and these B cells. Now, once it has bound to an antigen from an APC, it is now activated, and that results in a rapid division into a clone army of effector or memory cells. And this tells the body, hey, we need your specialty right about now. All you other T and B cells that don't match this antigen, save your strength for later. This is the enemy that we're facing now. So effector cells, effector B cells, produce antibodies, and antibodies are like soluble antigens. This means that they will match the same antigen as the receptor on the outside of a B cell, but they can be released into the bloodstream and throughout the body for attack. They can neutralize pathogens, bind pathogens, recruit phagocytes or complement proteins to destroy them. So basically, having antibodies to a pathogen keeps you from getting infected or sick, because those antibodies can target, here's some antibodies, can target or kill that pathogen. And the cool thing about them is that you may have over 1 million different B cells in your body, and they all recognize different antigens and produce these different flavored antibodies. Effective T cells can also help by stimulating your B cells to make antibodies or killing cells. Both B and T cells also make memory cells, and these are cells that are designed to match that particular antigen that was presented to them. Remember, an antigen is a piece of that invading pathogen, and allow your body to rapidly respond again if the same antigen is ever found in your body, even years later. This helps with the slow part. So even though your body may have many, many naturally occurring antibodies, exposure to pathogens allows your body to make more of whichever type you need, providing stronger and faster acting immunity. Which brings us back to vaccines. So a vaccine is usually a dead or inactive live virus. It may include parts of the virus, like a viral antigen, such as something from their protein coat. So let's see, this is your virus. This is your vaccine. And upon injection, after your first and second lines of defense have been breached, your third line of defense will be stimulated to produce antibodies that match exactly the antigens found from the vaccine that was just injected into you. So this can provide you with immunity for life. So what does that look like? Let's say day 1, you're first exposed to antigen A. Let's say antigen A was from the particular virus that you are getting a vaccine against. So this is antigen A. So what happens? You've now made the maximum number of antibodies against antigen A, and you will use these to help fight off the infection. This is like your primary immune response. So you've just told your body, hey, we need B cells that can produce antigen A antibodies and kill that. And so if you see any kind of cell that is showing antigen A on its surface, such as a cell that's infected with this antigen A virus, then please go ahead and kill it because it is dangerous, which is great. Now, let's say a month later, you're exposed again to antigen A. We call this a second challenge. So at this point, you have what's called a secondary immune response that is more rapid and more intense than the primary one because you have immunological memory. That means that your body already has lots of antibodies and lots of B and T cells that recognize those antigens. So if you're ever infected again, your body can fight it off very, very quickly. And this is how vaccines can help prevent you from getting